Along with a completely new era of car design, the 2022 Formula One season saw the continuation of the budget caps imposed in 2021, with the maximum amount teams could spend set at $114 million. And with all the talk this year about budgets and development spending, especially after all the drama with Red Bull, the question of how F1 teams actually make money is one that comes naturally. Now, teams have used various strategies and business models over the years to ensure their survival and thrive in the most technologically advanced sport of all. This may appear to be a relatively simple task for larger teams owned by major automakers, especially since the budget cap was implemented to level the playing field, but that's not the case for smaller, independent teams. As the sport became more complex over time, different teams were able to use various solutions to generate revenue and fuel their operations. So, without further ado, let's go over what they are and how effective they've been so far. The Concord Agreement. Naturally, a portion of each team's revenue comes from the sport itself in the form of the Concord Agreement. According to this agreement, at the end of a season, each team receives an equal share of the F1 earnings percentage for participating in the previous 2 seasons. Furthermore, another portion of the F1 team's revenues is calculated based on their final season ranking, with the winner receiving the largest share and others receiving less at each step of the ranking. In addition to these 2 shares of F1 revenue, some teams have access to additional funds as a result of their status in the sport. While specific details of the agreement have not been made public, some have. Ferrari, for example, earns an additional share because it's the only team that has competed in every single season, which has also given it a significant political and marketing impact on the sport. In addition, under the new rules, teams with a special heritage in the sport who have finished among the top 3 in recent years are entitled to a 20% share of F1 earnings above the $650 million mark. Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, Williams, Alpine, and Ferrari are among these teams. Overall, despite the fact that larger teams continue to earn significantly more than others, today's system ensures a much more equitable distribution than in previous years. Sponsorships. Sponsorships are the second source of income for every team, albeit to varying degrees. Every year, each team receives funds from 10 to 20 sponsors who pay to have their name displayed as a title partner or simply in various locations on the car. These deals are negotiated individually with the teams based on the type of exposure desired by the company and the length of time the car is shown on TV or social media. Naturally, teams fighting at the front receive more lucrative sponsorships as they enjoy more of F1's massive spotlight. While putting physical logos on cars may seem like an old-fashioned way of marketing, it works with companies willing to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for it. For example, Red Bull's title sponsor, Oracle, is said to have signed a 4-year contract worth $300 million with the team at the beginning of last year, which is not bad considering that big teams are spending less and less due to the budget cap. But wait, there's more. Technology transfer. Various teams have used various solutions over the years to improve their businesses and, as a result, their competitiveness and income. The most obvious, at least for automakers, is the transfer of technology. For companies such as Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, Aston Martin, and McLaren, the Formula One team, along with a powerful marketing tool, is also an important platform for technology development to transfer and apply to their respective road legal vehicles. The examples are numerous, particularly for luxury performance vehicles, with perhaps the most obvious being the Mercedes-AMG 1, which features the team's F1 engine under the hood. The second role, which is again used primarily by automakers and in some cases by larger teams, is that of suppliers. The engine is, of course, the most common component to be used this way. Once again, automakers supply engines for their own teams as well as for others. Mercedes builds engines for McLaren, Aston Martin, and Williams, while Ferrari builds engines for Haas and Alfa Romeo. Alpine, of course, uses a Renault engine, which has previously supplied many other teams. Red Bull and AlphaTauri, on the other hand, are powered by Honda engines. Honda is now only present as a supplier, despite previously competing in the championship. However, engines are not the only components supplied by major F1 teams. Even without a proprietary engine, teams can become suppliers. Even though the rules state that the entire car must be developed by the team, satellite team AlphaTauri uses chassis parts from Red Bull's previous cars, for instance. Apart from those, brakes, suspensions, fuel systems, steering and gearbox are developed with Red Bull technology. External technology transfer is yet another way that some teams use to generate additional revenue. Teams such as Williams, McLaren and Sauber developed technology for third parties that were not even involved in the Formula One championship over the years. In fact, this sport's innovation has been applied to fields as diverse as aerospace, materials engineering, information technology, and telecommunications. Merchandise. Last but not least, there are the merchandise sales. Selling merchandise has always been part of the game, and teams make a lot of money by selling various garments, collectibles, and other team-themed items to their fans. But it's not just the money made from purchases that matters. Merchandise is another place where the all-important sponsor logos can go, which means sponsors are willing to take that into account when negotiating a price. All teams place a high priority on merchandise sales, but it all depends on your performance, with higher ranking teams having more fans and thus more buyers. Overall, there are numerous factors that can contribute to an F1 team's financial success, and luck may not be the last of them, especially when rule changes are involved. Nonetheless, the current method of operation works at least somewhat well for the teams on the grid, but the same cannot be said for those attempting to enter the sport. Genuine new teams are rare in Formula One in the 21st century, as despite regular rebadging of existing operations, the challenge of building a constructor from the ground up is nearly impossible. But with the FIA keen to open a formal process for expressions of interest, there's the possibility that for the first time since 2010, multiple newcomers could join the grid in the coming years. 4 teams were granted entries as the 2010 entry expanded to 13 teams, meaning the F1 grid should have hit 26 cars for the first time since 1995. Infamously, US F1 collapsed before it ever participated in an F1 race, although Lotus Racing, Virgin and HRT made it. Or at least they did for a time, as all had vanished by 2017. The 4 new teams had their work cut out. Not only was the cost cap abandoned at the time, something that wasn't a surprise to those in F1 given the political machinations that wrong-footed all the newcomers, but the cost reduction measures barely even put the handbrake on the growth in budget. The new teams found themselves in an increasingly hostile financial environment. Even the 3 teams that made it past the hurdle of designing and building an F1 car, which cost hundreds of millions of dollars in and of itself, were effectively behind from the start, as the majority of the talented and experienced staff would remain in their cozy spots in the well-established tenured teams. If that isn't enough, not having a fast car means you won't be shown on TV, you won't get lucrative sponsorship deals, and you won't get much money from the prize pool at the end of the season. It's a vicious, self-perpetuating spiral to bankruptcy that's extremely difficult to avoid. And as if the odds weren't already stacked against new teams, the increasingly complexity of F1 cars is also a major reason why it's such a difficult sport to break into. Consider the cost of the facilities you'll need to build, the wind tunnel, simulators, strategy rooms, and specialty manufacturing machines. All of that costs millions, not to mention the proprietary software you'll need to make it all work, effectively doubling your efforts. It's now clear how difficult it is for new teams to enter the sport unless they have a truly massive amount of both engineering expertise and money, which is why the days of small privateer teams winning races are long gone. So let us know what you think. Is the way teams make money today good for the sport? Should smaller privately owned teams have an easier time entering Formula One? Make sure to comment down below. Now, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to be notified of our next uploads. Check out our other videos on the screen right now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.